And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Morning Coffee with myself and Robert Watson. We are going through the book today. It is Wednesday. Monday is just kind of a conversation about what's going on in the world, and today is we talk about the book as we get through it. I did the right homework. Speaking of homework, I think it's kind of funny. The chapter we're in is Friends, and Nikki said, you did the right homework. My fifth grade daughter just started school on Monday, and they have not had homework first through fifth grade. Is that insane?
How?
They don't do it. They do all the work at school.
Okay. There you go.
Just weird.
Yeah, that's different. I don't know. I remember one time I saw the generation after me do a lot of homework, a lot more homework than we had, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess it tapered off and now it's nothing. So they keep swinging their way through, trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, it was weird because I remember like the smart kids would get all their work done in class, but you'd always have like papers and stuff you had to write at home. But
Right.
like they'd get like in math class, I was terrible at math, so it would take forever. I'd struggle to get the concept, and I would be working through it the whole time and still have like 20 problems to do after I only did 10 in class. And could have been a little bit of distraction too, but
Yeah.
I would have to go home and do the extra math at home. And it was just like, everyone else doesn't have to do this, but I do. And I'm sitting here watching my daughter not have homework, and I'm like, either she's really smart or her school just doesn't have it. And she's like, yeah, nope, we're not going to have it. I'm like, maybe in sixth grade. What the hell? This is insane.
Love it.
Yep.
Definitely different.
Yep. So the chapter
So
is Friends. Let's talk about that a little bit.
I love the quote on this. It's make friends with people who want the best for you. And
Yep.
It's shocking, right? But all the studies suggest we have what's called kind of a nuclear group around us, which is 5 close friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they be family or whatever, they are 5 friends that we spend the super majority of our free time with, whether it's on the phone, person, doesn't matter. And those friends either do one of 3 things. They either pull us down, keep us the same, or elevate us.
Yep.
Okay. Many times we see, for example, if your buddy calls you up and he says, hey, let's go play racquetball. Then there's a buddy who says, come on, hey, let's go have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a buddy, you understand which one's pulling you which way, right? And there's nothing wrong with having a drink and there's nothing wrong with playing racquetball. We're not saying that. We're just asking which ones are pushing you toward good habits or bad habits.
Right.
Right? Who wants to go eat junk food? Who wants to go, all these things, what you do with your friends pulls you in the right direction, takes you towards your goals or pulls you away from your goals.
Yep.
Really, really simple. And so we have what's called a Dunbar number, which is about 150 people that we can keep relative association with. That means people we come in to play with at our work, or we have an email conversation with probably once every 2 months or whatever. And those people form our outer circle.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle, we have a circle of associates that kind of is about 50 to 60 people that we encounter on a fairly regular basis. But we get down to 5 important friends, and that doesn't necessarily happen to be family. Family can be in that outer circle. But this has been studied because, again, we're social creatures, and they've been studying this, I guess, for about 100 years. And it is really, really true, though. The elevation of your 5 friends makes all the difference in the world. Like, for example, if you're a friend of mine was talking about their ex-husband, right? And the ex-husband wasn't really growing or doing anything. And now he was in his late 30s. And I said, well, don't you realize he still has the same friends from high school? And she went, oh my gosh, he does. He has the exact same friends. Well, then he's in the exact same place. She goes, that's shocking. I said, exactly. I said, so what happens a lot of times when you start to elevate yourself is think about, guys like Tom Brady, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 core friends he has, right, in high school. Okay, he goes to college, he becomes, a starter, big deal. But as he goes along, either his friends are going to what? Push him up or
Right.
pull him down, right? And so you look around and you say, how many friends can you carry with you in their bad habits up to being the greatest of all time? Well, the
Yeah.
answer is not many because your friends are going to have to pull you in the right direction, right? They're going to have to pull you in the direction of your dreams, not be somebody you call up and you're going to go backwards with. Like one of my sons was talking about their friend, and every time they get together, they drink.
Yep.
And I said, really? Is that the best use of your time? I said, I know this is a really close friend, but think about this. Can you just influence the friend to have better habits, right?
Yeah.
Let's go play golf instead.
Mhm.
Something, right, that pulls you toward. But what happens every time is every time he goes to visit the friend, he wakes up the next morning feeling like crap.
Right.
Yeah.
We all got
Which way
that
are you
friend.
going? Yeah, no, we do.
It's funny though, because just like you're saying, like those top 5 people, and you think about it, I was listening again to, Eric Burns last night talk on their podcast that they have on Tuesday. That's kind of my thing to do. Listen to Will Clark and Eric Burns kind of reminisce and talk about old school baseball, because to me it's something that's important. And he was talking about like being challenged daily, and those are the people that in my latter life, like yourself, that I try to put myself around, people who will challenge me to be better, people who will push me to be better, because I don't want to be stuck where I'm at. I want to be better every single day. And people who do that, like, it kind of carries over into life, right? Um, my job, for instance, and you and I are both the same way, like this competitive nature. We were athletes, we played sports, and when we were playing sports, the whole idea was to be a better person every single day, or be better,
Right.
take one step more, be one, one pound, one rep stronger. Just know that you have to push yourself and challenge yourself to be better every single day. And so it's, for me, it's kind of a crux because it can be challenging at times. But what I'm learning is that I'm so competitive with myself that I want to be better every single day. And I'm learning to deal better with the disappointment of failure, because if you put yourself in that situation trying to be better, you know, you're going to fail more. And if you can learn how to have that short memory and deal with that failure, you're going to be better off in the long run. And then you end up changing those people who you're around. And I still talk to a friend that I have in high school, like probably twice a week, but he's not like on the same path as I am. And we talk about, home life and personal things and things like that. But he's not the guy who's challenging me to be better. It's these people who are like, hey, read this book. Hey, do this. What are you doing here? Like, they want you to be better, just like you said.
Right. And for example, I'm dive, flight, and jump qualified, right? So my idea of a good weekend is doing something that risks your life. Well, obviously, my core friends from high school are no longer with me. Why? Because if you want to spend a weekend with me, you're going to go do something rather extreme.
Right.
Even my poor kids have had to, I have to say this because my daughter and I were talking about the fact that I've taken her jumping. I've jumped off the side of paragliding off the side of mountains. And she, being my eldest, decided to follow me in a lot of endeavors. She went diving with me and all this kind of stuff. And she was just like, Dad, I'm much more tame now. But, to be around me is to do all these things. And so what happens is if you're not into these things, you just won't be there.
Right.
It's just, again, it's not right or wrong. It's just me. And
Yeah.
that's how I like to spend my weekends. And somebody says to me, hey, let's go join me at a bar and have queso and beer. I'm like, okay. But, once, but what else are we doing?
Right.
And they'd be like, why are you so high energy? And I'm well, because I want to get shit done.
Yeah.
I want to do things.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. It's like there are some people who are like, I'm not going to do this at all, and then there's people like, if I'm going out to do something, I mean, and it's funny. It's like even like working on this property that I have. Like if I'm going outside in the morning and I'm going to go do something, like I have the goal of I'm going to tackle all this stuff, and I may not get there, but I'm going to spray the weeds, I'm going to mow the lawn, I'm going to hang up the fence, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like I'm going all in at whatever I'm doing so that I can get the most done that I can get done and just be productive in what I'm doing. And then people will go like, well, how do you work all week and then go out and do that and go out and do that? It's just like, it's just driven. You have to have the drive in order to do that. And not
Plus,
everyone has that.
plus to me, it's play.
Hmm.
Okay, for me to go spend an hour on the basketball court just screwing around, right?
Yeah.
Going through drills and stuff like that is play to me. And
Right.
people are like, "You mean you spent an hour working out on the basketball court?" No, I spent an hour playing on the basketball court. You just think it's work, but I love it. If I'm doing dribbling drills or whatever, that's something that makes me happy. When my son comes in, my eldest, he'll say, "Let's go grab a football, Dad." So we'll be talking and throwing a football, right?
Right.
Not just sitting at a table having coffee. Everything is kind of action oriented, right?
Yep.
Let's go throw a ball. Let's go this. Let's go run. All these things to generate conversation and to just sit there and talk.
Yeah. It's weird. And I find myself that way too. It's like I have to fill the gaps of quietness in my day with conversation, and I want to talk to someone and I want to pick their brain and I want to do whatever I do. So like I'll roll around and I'll be on Telegram all day. So like I'm driving, I'll get to an appointment, I'll go in, I'll do my job, I'll come back out, I'll quote it out, and then like it's on to the next one. And I may have like a 30-minute drive. So I'm either listening to a book, having a conversation on the phone, going back and forth on Telegram with Jay or Nikki or AJ, or texting you, or just like talking to people in general to just kind of keep that juice flowing instead of just like vegging out. Like I feel like I'm unproductive if I'm not feeling every minute with something that's making me better.
Yeah, I joined the Audible thing, right? The
Hmm.
Audible book club like 2 years ago. So anytime I'm in the car for more than like 15 minutes, I punch Audible,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a lot of books that, to be honest with you, a lot of times I'll sit down, especially because I'm a grad student, I'll sit down and start reading. I'll go to sleep.
Yep.
I mean, so the Audible is kind of nice because I can get through some material and I can think and drive, and it's keeps my mind going a little bit so that I
Right.
don't drift off. But the core part of things are we're always asking, like my son and I are always talking about, Dad, what new vitamins or additives are you trying? Like I have a regimen of like 6 or 7 things that I take, but I've always got 2 more that I'm rotating in to see what happens. So we're always exchanging ideas on supplements.
Right.
Okay, now what are you doing? What's going on? What's happening here? And it's always this kind of how do you make yourself better? Well, the answer is like anything else, you don't know till you try it.
Right.
And what works for my body does not 100% work for his.
Hmm.
Now, even though we're related, it's not quite the same. It's close.
No, you're only
So
half
we're
related
always
though, right?
experimenting. We're only half related. That's
Yeah.
it. Well, the weird thing is, you get that 23 Me thing, and you're supposed to think you get like half of each parent, right?
Right.
Well, that's not exactly what happens, right? You get some number like 60-40, 40-60. So it is always curious, right? When you see your kid's DNA, right? Because I have 4.
Uh-huh.
You should have ostensibly the same DNA across the 4 kids. We don't,
Yeah.
right? It varies between the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only got so much input in that one.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
yeah, this core idea of friends is so much about your success. So a lot of people will sit down and make a list, and they'll study and they'll do all these things, but then they realize that in their free time and their distraction time, they're not being pulled up; they're being pulled back. Like for example, everybody has that or has a friend, the drama friend.
Hmm.
Everything has to be drama, right? Well, if you like to live drama free, it's hard to have that friend. So
Right.
you have to take that friend in doses, right? Or are you going to sit around and gossip about somebody? Or are you going to sit around and complain about the news? Like, I don't even know what's going on in the news.
Right.
I mean, if my phone didn't ring off and say there was something important, like somebody picked a vice presidential candidate, I wouldn't know. I don't watch the news.
Yeah. And it's funny because you're more aware of situations when you're around those people who make you aware of them. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like the current situation, right? I what I do is I won't do the only thing I do is I read the news. Like I'll bounce between Apple News and Fox News, because they're kind of like two different sides of the whole thing. Like one is really right and one is really left, and I'll read both of them and kind of find the in between and understand that. But when you read a story, like there's things that really make me anxious. Like right now, I'm pretty anxious because a lot of you, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but like the stock market took a really big dump on Monday, like 1,000 points. And in my job, if the stock market is down, people aren't spending money, and I can see it, and they're not going to be buying from me, or they're going to be changing their habits of purchasing. Instead of like, hey, this is 5-star review, I'm not going to go to 5-star review because 5-star review costs more. I'm going to go get 4 quotes and I'm going to buy the cheapest one. And that's kind of the way that it goes, is they go back and forth between trying to get the best value and the best quality service. And, honestly, like in the job that I do, it's really about service. It's not about the quality of the product, because everyone sells the same product. It's just how they service that product and take care of their customers. And so when something like this happens, when money's less available, when people are losing money in their retirement, when they're not making money in the stock market, they're like, okay, I'm going to spend less money now, because now it's more about quantity over quality. And it's tough. So it makes me nervous. And then I start getting anxious about what's going on, and then people aren't buying, or people aren't calling, or whatever. And then you start really going down that spiral. And in the end, if I just kind of just keep pushing forward, I find out that doesn't really matter. I've put myself in that headspace, and I'm going to be taken care of. I just have to keep doing what I do.
Yeah. And I have to, it's interesting because I talked to a friend who was born in September of 1987. Mm-hmm. And we were talking and I said, oh my gosh, you were born, a month before the crash. And she said, what crash?
Right.
And I was like, well, okay. It was the largest or global stock market crash of 1987, October 1987. She goes, I don't know anything about that. And I laugh, because when you start talking about drops, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking 1,000 points. Well, 1,000 points back then meant something.
Right.
1,000 points now is a sneeze. You're at 30,000.
Yeah.
We were at 4.
Right.
So let's put it in context.
Well, and it's insane, because what happens is like that stuff, they're doing that to make you nervous. That's why they're doing it. Like they want to project it, because if someone projects that, someone's going to make or lose money if they project whatever they're projecting. We saw that like with what was that GameStop thing like a couple of years ago, or even anytime Elon Musk says something like invest in Dogecoin, then all of a sudden the stock just goes up, and he knows that, but he went and bought it really cheap and then said invest in it, so everyone else would invest in it. It's insane what they can do to push the market where they want it to go.
Yeah, it was interesting because I popped over to just now. I'm sitting here looking at, because I've got an entire board in front of me, and I was looking at what actually did get hit really hard was Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about the Dow. The Dow didn't do anything. Bitcoin was sitting around 67, and all of a sudden it was at 50.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, which is huge. And you were at, 41,000 on the Dow. Now you're at 39. It's down 2,000. That's really not that big of a deal when your index is 39,000.
Well, and you watch it like drop, because it dropped. And that was one thing that I keep looking at, is like it dropped 1,000 points. But like yesterday, it was up 200. I mean, at one point it was up 500. So like it's so volatile anyway. It'll be back where it was. But we all
and it's
panic.
It's up 500 in pre-market trade right now. So, it's but it is funny when you look at these things and you try to get things into proportion, right? It's difficult when people don't have a sense of history, right?
Yeah.
And you had to go back and realize what the Dow was in the crash of 29. Mm-hmm. And people are like, what do you mean? Well, losing 50 points back then was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, it's a blip.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty insane but back to, the friendship thing, like those are the types of things that the people who are the woe is me, the people who are bringing you down are going to bring you down, just like you said,
Yeah.
And it's insane how like you can think about those things and they can bother you just by putting yourself in that situation.
Right. And I think that if you have friends that, and you were talking about being negative or positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's so much that people can focus on, especially when media tends to focus on the negative. If it's friction or fiction, they sell it, right? They're not
Yep.
in the business of selling heartwarming Hallmark moments. That's
Yep.
for the Hallmark Channel. And so you see yourself inundated with all this. Instead, you surround yourself with really fairly positive people
Mm-hmm.
who are looking at things like, I mean, swear to God, who look at things like cancer and go, I'll beat it. And
Yep.
you're like, no, that's a pretty tough diagnosis. But then you start realizing people who have a mentality of, that's okay, I'll beat it.
Yeah.
And they may not. But think about the attitude that it takes to go, okay, this is life.
Yeah, and you're going to try a hell of a lot harder with a positive outcome on that situation than a negative one. If you're the woe is me person, you're going to
Yeah.
have this negative outcome thought, and it's true. Like that can make or break you. That can make you go, you know what? I've got cancer. Okay, I'm going to not make it till tomorrow. What am I going to do since I'm not going to make it tomorrow? Well, I'm going to drink every drink I want. I'm going to eat everything I want. I'm going to go out and try and do this. I'm going to go out and try and do that. I'm going to do everything I can. And it could end up being detrimental to you. Instead of
Hmm.
let's eat healthy, let's do this, let's put ourselves in a situation that is going to make us better so that we can survive, a chance to survive rather than a chance to not survive.
Those who live longer, and there's the facts and the data is without reproach. Those who have something to look forward to live longer.
Mm-hmm.
Once you take hope in the future out of someone's equation, they wither away and die.
Yeah.
And that's a reality. You can be sitting there at 80 and be absolutely vibrant because of the thing you've got in front of you to do,
Right.
right? Like I've got, like, what I want to see is I want to see my granddaughter who is 18. I want to see her graduate from college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the next 4 years, you're like fully invested in what's going to happen to your grandchild, graduating from college.
Right.
And so as long as you keep things forward, so the friends around you have to be people that are looking forward, right?
Right.
Who are living in the present and saying, listen, I'm going to get the most out of today that I possibly can. I'm not going to worry about so much of tomorrow. But then you got these people who are looking forward going, man, I'm so fired up about today because my gosh, look at what tomorrow. And the phrase I love is you have to create a life that you can't wait to wake up to.
Right.
And when people think about that, they're like, what do you mean? I said, no, a life where you're like, I want to get up. Why? Because there's going to be something cool today. Very, very cool today. And the only way you can sustain that kind of stuff is you have to be bouncing off of people that feel the same way.
Right.
Because you can't have a bunch of Debbie Downers in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's two schools on this, and I hear people say this all the time. And I've been on my, this is episode like 359, right? So I've done so many episodes of it, and I've revisited it millions of times where I tell people to surround themselves with like-minded people. And what happens when you tell people that is they start to go, well, if you agree with everyone, then you're never going to be different. You're never going to grow. You're never going to, and that's not what that means. That means surround yourself with people who challenge you. Surround yourself with people who want you to be better. Surround yourself with people who want to be better. It doesn't mean that you have to have the same thought process on everything. It's listening and being open to that other person's thought process and maybe utilizing what they're doing to help them have the same growth. It doesn't mean that you're going to have the same everything. It doesn't mean that. And it's the political point of that whole situation is just because you're right or you're left doesn't mean that you can't talk about this, because the problem is now we have right and left not talking about anything because you're so wrong and you're so wrong and we're not going to even talk about it.
Yeah, it's not issues related anymore. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, it's funny. I had two close friends, and one friend, and this epitomizes this. One friend was always like, we need to try a new restaurant. Every new restaurant that opened, and Houston is a big town, so there's always something open.
Yep.
Every new restaurant he need to go try, right? Great friends, wonderful. Other group of friends had the haunts. In other words, we have the 10 places that we like to go,
Right.
and we keep going back to them because we know what the food's like.
Yep.
You need both, right?
Right.
You need the people that are like who want to go to a place because it does excellent ceviche or whatever it does, right?
Right.
I used to go to restaurants and people would say, "Well, what's on the menu?" I said, "I don't know. I go to the restaurant for this thing that they do really well. When I want that, I go to that restaurant." But, and I have my little path, worn path, but my other friends are like, "Let's try every new restaurant possible." And you need both
Yep.
because you don't learn anything, you don't grow if you don't try new, right? And so you just keep adding to your repertoire, so to speak. And I love friends that like to travel and, even simple travel, not necessarily expensive, that are just going to new places, showing you pictures of new things.
Right.
And my son is getting ready to head to Brussels, and he's in the army. He's getting ready to head to Brussels. He has some friends already over there. They're sending him pictures every weekend of where they're going on the weekends in Europe, because you take an hour train ride in Germany or from Brussels or France, you take an hour or 2 hour train ride, you're in another country.
Yeah.
Seeing a castle or doing something. And he says every weekend there's pictures of him somewhere. I said, you will absolutely love this because it will completely change your perspective. I'm in Texas, dude. It takes me 5 hours to get out of Texas.
Right.
I love Texas, but to get to the next state
Yep.
takes a minute, right? But there's
Yep.
so many cool things to do. And you need those friends that are pushing you, especially when you have the opportunity to do incredible things.
Yep. Variety is the spice of innovation and invention, Shifty says. Got to have that variety. That's all there is to it. Got to be challenged every single day. Well, good conversation. We'll do it again on Monday. You guys need to go out there and challenge yourself today and make sure that, you're doing something to push forward every single day. Get your Magic Mind in. Thanks to Magic Mind for sponsoring the show. We appreciate you. Head over to magicmind.com. Use code WEST20 for 20% off your first purchase or up to 48% off of your subscription. Really great stuff. I started taking it because, well, I got a 2-year-old that keeps me up all night. He actually got up last night at 1 o'clock again, and it really helps me to stay focused throughout the day. Goes with your coffee. Really great thing. We also need to go check out Robert's book. It's available on Amazon. R is Victorious. Great book. We've been going through it. We're getting close to the end of it, and we may have to revisit some of these chapters and go over it. If you're hanging out on TikTok, we appreciate you being here. Nikki, Shifty. We've got some new followers. If you guys come check us out every Monday, Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. I got to think about the times because we're sitting here at 5 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock Robert's time. And so we appreciate y'all being here. This is Robert Watson. I am Wes Tankersley. Until next time, we will see ya.
Have a great one.
Yep. Thanks, Robert.